Under the artificial dome of starlight they gathered. Aliens from across the spiral arms, cloaked in velvet uniforms, ceremonial armor, and synthetic prestige. The Galactic Council convened once again, hollow in purpose, bloated in presence. The agenda: assert dominion over the Anali Corridor, a resource-rich vein contested by the Terran Accord. Except Earth hadn't responded to summons. Not in years. Not until today. The chair reserved for humanity remained empty as the initial proceedings began. Protocols were recited, pompous greetings exchanged. Empire delegates smirked behind their mandibles and lipless jaws. They didn't expect Earth to send anyone. The consensus among the galactic elite was simple. Humanity had withdrawn. Isolated. Broken. Nothing more than a ghost world protected by old treaties and obsolete fear. Then the chamber dimmed, deliberately, by design. It meant a late arrival. The door hissed. A figure walked through, alone. No entourage. No translation drones. Just a single humanoid presence, tall, clad in black armor laced with threads of glowing cobalt. Her face was bare, expression unreadable, eyes unblinking. She walked without ceremony to the human station, set her gloved hand on the podium, and waited. Some laughed. The Empire's general, seated front and center, stood to address her. "Terran envoy," he said with a sneer. "Sending one human is a bold insult. Or a pitiful cry." She responded without flinching. "Envoy Yaga. Authorized representative of the Terran Accord. Speaking on behalf of Earth and its protectorates." "Protectorates," he scoffed. "A word for failed colonies." Yaga said nothing. The general gestured toward the gathered assembly. "Let the minutes reflect that humanity, having abandoned its obligations, forfeits any claim to the Anali Corridor. All in favor." Hands, claws, tentacles rose. A majority. Yaga remained still. "You may file protest with the Protocol Division," the general said, mockingly. She raised a single hand. "Protocol 74D, subsection 9. A dispute regarding protected systems requires unanimous consent if the affected party remains in attendance." The silence was immediate. Delegates turned to one another, confused. The Empire's legal attaché scrambled, subvocalizing through an internal comms link. Moments later, he stiffened. It was true. "I invoke that clause," she said simply. The vote paused. Now the mood shifted. Empire officials conferred, irritated. How did one human, unassisted, navigate obscure legislative traps with surgical precision? "Objection," the general barked. "This clause was never meant to apply to derelict species." Yaga finally looked up. "Derelict implies we needed you. We didn't." An audible shift in the room. Unease. The Anali Corridor was more than property. It was a boundary. A testing line to measure humanity's resolve. The general leaned in. "We'll challenge the clause. Detain her." 2 armored guards moved. A quiet hum filled the air. The podium's glow intensified. They reached for her shoulders. They never touched her. Their suits seized. Metal convulsed. Internal systems reversed pressure flow. A sickening crunch echoed as both collapsed, gasping, suits venting from the inside. One convulsed. The other went still. Delegates rose from their seats in alarm. The Empire's security staff stood frozen. Yaga didn't move. "You attempted physical coercion in a diplomatic chamber," she said flatly. "I responded." The general's eyes narrowed. "That shouldn't have been possible." A soft voice, older, alien, somewhere from the second tier, whispered a name, just loud enough for audio pickups to catch it. "Baba Yaga." Delegates stirred. Conversations halted mid-sentence. The younger among them didn't recognize it. But the veterans? The survivors? They knew. That wasn't a name. That was a myth. A weapon clothed in skin. A Terran phantom said to haunt war zones, never recorded, never proven. It was a ghost story from the Empire's darkest intelligence files. Yaga didn't acknowledge the name. She simply placed her other hand behind her back. The general recovered. The council will hear of this violation. You've committed assault within a peace chamber. She looked directly at him. No. I neutralized an attempted abduction. Do you wish to test the limits of proportionality? A dozen security personnel hesitated in the shadows. None moved. She continued. The Terran Accord does not recognize imperial authority over disputed systems. We retain mining rights, logistical access, and colonial sovereignty as established by the Cordell Agreement. The Empire's lawyer flinched. That agreement was terminated. She raised an eyebrow. By whom? The answer never came. Because according to Galactic protocol, the Cordell Agreement could not be unilaterally terminated. It required mutual withdrawal. Earth had never submitted one. The general changed tone. You expect us to believe you represent all of humanity? Alone? I don't expect anything, she replied. I am not here for belief. Delegates now leaned forward, eyes focused. Something was unraveling. They'd thought this was ceremonial, a relic of diplomacy before war. Now, it felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, staring into a storm. We gave you peace, the general snapped. We let your species live. No, she said. You survived because we chose to leave you breathing. A moment passed. Then two. Behind her, a projected display flickered to life. A silent sequence played. Empire fleet maneuvers across the Anali sector, all marked classified. The kind of data even Empire generals didn't know was leaked. How? Someone began. You've already lost access to those systems, she said, as the star maps shifted. Red XS appeared over fleet coordinate. That's a lie. Is it? She asked, as the final image froze on a familiar ship, an Empire dreadnought. Offline. Dead in space. Silence fell again. An alien in ceremonial robes leaned toward his neighbor and murmured, She isn't here to negotiate. She's here to warn us. Yaga stared out across the room. Earth does not seek expansion. We do not crave your territory. We do not require affirmation from this chamber. We came here to remind you. A delegate from the Neutral Systems Alliance stood. Remind us of what? That the absence of war is not weakness. That patience is not submission. That when you come for our soil, our stars, or our children, you will find us waiting. The general sat back, jaw locked. A bead of sweat slid down his temple. Yaga stepped down from the podium. No farewell. No summary. The door opened. She walked out. Behind her, silence reigned, not from awe, but from a dawning realization. She hadn't come to argue. She came to deliver a verdict. The chamber was still recovering from what had happened, but the tremor beneath the surface had already started to spread. The Empire's confidence had been dented in public, and they weren't built to handle uncertainty. Empire officials scrambled to regain posture, pretending nothing had happened. Behind closed channels, however, messages flew in panic. Recon fleets stationed in the Anali region began going silent, one after another. Command assumed communication errors, until sensor logs showed impossible feedback loops in systems designed to be failure-proof. Coordinates that made no sense. Ghost data. Jammed satellites. And then nothing. The general who had mocked her earlier convened with his war staff in a secure chamber above the council floor. He wanted answers. What ship was she on? What fleet had escorted her in? Why wasn't there a trace? Intelligence units found no registry. No traceable origin. No heat signatures from a Terran vessel in the system. The chair she sat in was tagged and scanned. No biometric residue. The room had been sterilized. She wasn't transported in, someone muttered. She walked in, another said. And now she's gone. Across the outer colonies, local governors attempted to preemptively seize Terran trade hubs, thinking the council's vote granted them authority. But they found no humans. Not living ones. Only abandoned structures, sabotaged supply routes, and sometimes, open hangars with no signs of resistance. Then those governors stopped reporting back. At the Empire's northern reach, An outpost in orbit around Balar Prime was hit with a system blackout. No explosions, no invasions. The orbital station simply spun off-axis. Crew were found disoriented, psychologically damaged, some comatose. Their logs? All corrupted, overwritten with a single phrase in multiple languages: "You are not prepared." The general returned to the council chamber, this time with caution etched across his face. Delegates took note. He addressed the room with forced calm, demanding Earth be formally sanctioned, citing unprovoked aggression and violations of interstellar peace. Several members expected to vote with him, but hesitation hung in the air. Some remembered the last war. The one nobody spoke of. Not because humanity had won, but because of how they'd won. Without occupying. Without conquering. They had simply vanished from the war zone, after leaving behind nothing but malfunctioning machines, disrupted weather patterns, and empty cities. The Empire's fleets had returned, hollow-eyed, unwilling to discuss what they saw. And now the rumors had a name. An anonymous file dropped into the Council's shared network, flagged with every security protocol. A leaked archive, decades old, stamped with a redacted Imperial emblem. Its title, Operation Silent Witch. Classified beyond top secret. Buried in a black site. Delegates opened it live. The footage played in silence. Grainy, shaky visuals of Empire operatives being hunted through nebulae. A human figure in black appearing without heat signatures, tearing through their command centers without setting off alarms. AI corrupted mid-mission. Gravity fields weaponized against their own ship. Dozens of code words appeared. Yaga, Spectre Directive, Null Storm. Then the screen glitched, red text flooding the screen. Containment failed. Recommend non-engagement. Terminate pursuit. She is not a combatant. She is a failsafe. The general ordered the feed cut. But the damage was done. Delegates exchanged looks. Some stood and quietly left the room. Not in protest, but out of a sudden instinct to not be in the same place as the Empire. The general sat defeated. She's just one person. A representative from the Vorn Consortium replied without humor, she's never alone. If she's appeared, something worse is watching. The Council's internal communication logs reflected a sudden shift in stance. Pro-Empire allies redrafted their alignment. Neutral factions demanded emergency votes to reinstate old Terran agreement. Systems that had blocked Terran ships reopened trade channels. Colonies once aligned with the Empire quietly disconnected their relays. Across the stars, cloaked human carriers moved in silence, unarmed on the surface, but followed by systems going dark in their wake. They didn't speak. They didn't make demands. They simply reminded the galaxy of their presence by appearing where they shouldn't, and leaving traces that broke advanced scanners. An Empire ambassador tried to make contact with Earth via deep space relay. The response was a ping. Not verbal. A simple waveform, once decoded, read. Request noted. No reply necessary. In council halls, a decision was made to revoke the earlier vote on the Anali corridor. It was announced as a gesture of goodwill. But everyone knew the truth. It was surrender without the ceremony. The council didn't fear humanity's fleet. They feared what might follow silence. Yaga reappeared 1 week later, this time standing before a smaller subcommittee. She didn't speak. They welcomed her back without question. No one asked where she'd gone. One delegate tried to thank her for not retaliating. She gave a small, unreadable nod. There was no retaliation, she said. We haven't acted. We only arrived. The general who had mocked her submitted his resignation within the hour. The Empire called it a strategic reassignment. Weeks later, old Terran allies began sharing new defense technologies. Subtle improvements, quiet upgrade. Not gift. Just tools. Humanity wasn't building alliances. They were rebalancing memory. Making sure no one forgot again. Back in the central chamber, her seat remained empty most days. But it was never reassigned. And even when she wasn't there, no one ever sat in it. Because the lesson was simple. The galaxy didn't fall to war. It was made quiet through memory. And when silence returned, it carried her shadow,